leading the way. Yeah. He's got a passion for all things nerdy. Dungeons and Dragons, his world's not blurry. From comics to movies, he's got it all. He's an outpost nerd living in a geeky world with his lightsaber shining. He's a Star Wars swirl through galaxies and adventures. He'll take you there, take you there. He's an outpost nerd, no one can compare. Nerd power, yeah, he's the king of nerds, catching that flare.
What's up, my nerd geeks and dweeps, and welcome to another transmission from the Outpost Nerd. Happy First Contact Day to all my nerdy friends who love Star Trek as much as me. Today, we are celebrating Star Trek because today, in 38 years, will be the day that the great Zefram Cochrane develops his warp ship, the Phoenix, from an old nuclear missile and launches it to space, gaining the attention of a passing Vulcan survey ship. That these events launch into history, mankind into space, and develops the United Federation of Planets and the series Star Trek that we love so much. I'm just going to share what I love about the series, the classical series, the Berman and Roddenberry Trek mostly. Not a fan of new Trek. I love Enterprise. I love Next Generation. I enjoyed Voyager and Deep Space Nine. I love the movies, especially First Contact, which we'll be talking about. One of my favorite ships that premiered in Star Trek First Contact. So let's look at this ship. Let's see. The USS Akira class, my favorite ship. Just thought I'd go over the wiki and share what I like about it, share some things about it. So this ship like I said, premiered during the Battle of Sector 001 when the Borg invaded Earth. And it was only on screen for probably about a few seconds, not very long. But it's made a few appearances since then in Deep Space Nine and an episode, I think Message in a Bottle is the episode it was in, a Voyager. And it made an appearance, I think, in season 2 of Picard. Season 1 of Picard was kind of a letdown. You have that huge, awesome fleet that pops up in the final episode to fight the Romulans, but there's only one ship. That's not what fans wanted. So in season 2, they had another fleet, and it had all sorts of the classic ships, including the newer versions of the ship. But some things about the Akira class. Let's look at the history of it. So it was created at the Utopia Planitia Fleet Yards, which is the fleet yards that were over Mars. It was developed and saw deployment again on the front lines of numerous engagements, including the Borg at the Battle of Sector 001, like I just mentioned, and in the Dominion War, where it took part in Operation Return, which was the battle that saw Cisco and Starfleet return to take back control of Deep Space Nine from the Dominion. And it fought in the Battle of Jintoka and the Battle of Cordessi. So it was a major part of the Dominion War. And the thing that makes this ship different, let's look at it. We'll bring the bit of the technical manual. Let's not do that. So what we see here is we see let me take. There we go. A little bit better. See, unlike most, like a lot of Starfleet ships, the Akira class kind of did away with the secondary shuttle and kind of it went back to the catamaran saucer section style that we saw with early Starfleet ships like the NX-01, which is the ship for the Enterprise, Star Trek Enterprise. And the idea of this design, this ship was designed by Alex Yeager for First Contact. And then a few years later, when Enterprise was being developed, Doug Drexler took the design from the Akira class and kind of went back and designed the NX-01 based off of the Akira class. So in world, the Akira class is based off the NX-01, but in real life, the NX-01 is based off the Akira class because we see a lot of similarities between the designs, the catamarans going out to the warp nacelles. But the thing I like most about the Akira class is in the between the catamarans, between the warp nacelles, you have a weapons pod. Now, the Akira class is designated a heavy cruiser, which is basically, in other words, a Starfleet battleship. Starfleet, they didn't really create battleships too much. They didn't believe in them. They would always say that they were an exploratory organization, not a military organization, which to me is flat out wrong. And the weapons pod, it was so unique because we see here. Let me do something. Let me remove that. I want to bring up. Oops, let's see. Oh, no, don't want to do that. I'm going to bring up a better picture of that. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Bring up this so I can move it around a bit. Here's the weapons pod. Now, a unique thing about this is this function of the Akira class is the weapons pod can be swapped out. It could for mission specific equipment. A lot of times it was the weapons pod, but it could be a sensor pod or a scientific pod. It could be all sorts of different unique items. So it was a very versatile ship besides just being a battleship. And it was Akira class in actions. Here's what it says. Let's bring that a little closer. A ship designed primarily for patrol and combat duties, the Akira class saw more than its fair share of action in the later half of the 24th century. In 2373, several Akira class ships, including the USS Thunderchild NCC 63549, were part of the Starfleet task force that fought the Borg in the Battle of Sector 001. Although at least 2 Akira class vessels were destroyed during the engagement, its fleet managed to coordinate a successful attack on the cube by targeting its vulnerable area of the ships based on Captain Picard's inside knowledge of the Borg. And here's this is what made people fall in love with it. And here's one thing I love about this ship is that it's almost like a carrier. It's almost like a Starfleet carrier, because here A lot of people thought this design here was like in the NX-01 that was the deflector dish, but the deflector dish is down here lower on the main saucer of the ship, and here's the shuttle bays. So it carried a lot of fighters, shuttles, and other support craft. But a lot of Starfleet ships, you don't see fighters in Star Trek very much because the idea that fighters are almost obsolete because phaser targeting technology is so advanced that it could just pluck them out of the air. Just the targeting is so advanced. But here is a rear section. The rear. See, the torpedoes had a front forward shot, forward launchers, as well as the back, the aft launchers. So a lot of like we see in the Galaxy class ships of the Enterprise D, the aft torpedo launchers were on the star drive, which was the lower part of the ship. This one, it's up in the pod, so it had I would say a wider range because it wasn't, unlike the Galaxy Quest, the Akira class aft torpedoes were not blocked by the nacelles, because the nacelles here are going down to get out of the way, and they're almost in line with the saucer section. The impulse engines on the saucer section, as well as the catamarans. Here's an interesting thing. Alex Yeager, as I mentioned before, the designer of the Akira class, said that the escape pods pods on it were the same as those used by the Sovereign class, but the panel details were much more similar to those of the Galaxy class. This was because he imagined that the Akira class was commissioned between the launch of the two ships, which in the timeline they were. It was really interesting. It's an interesting design because you have the Akira seems to be take inspiration from all sorts of different ships of the time, even all the way back. It seems like the design took a lot of in-world historical references. And here's one thing I like. The phaser array goes all around, and here we see the escape pods right here. These little almost square pieces. So that's 3, 6. That's 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 3, 5, 6. So that's 24 escape pods. No, 24. Nine, 39. I didn't recognize here. And here is the main bridge. The main bridge on all Starfleet ships. This is one of Roddenberry's rules, which I'll get into in a little bit. Happy Easter and happy First Contact Day, beautifully. Thank you for coming. Just talking some Star Trek, sharing my favorite ship. I'll get into the rules. Roddenberry had rules of starship design that have kind of gone on the wayside a little bit, but the Akira class, I love the idea of a Starfleet quote unquote battleship. And we see this in the Akira, we see this in the Defiant, but they're never called that. So let's look at the technical manual. this is from the Star Trek Deep Space Nine technical manual. The production base, where it was built, was the and in Terrace Fleet Yards on Antares 4. The Type I said is a heavy cruiser, which is basically a Starfleet battleship. The accommodation was 500 officers and crews, which is smaller because like a Galaxy class ship was a couple of thousand, if I remember correctly. The power plant is 1,500 plus Cochrane warp drive feeding 2 nacelles and 1 impulse engine. Dimensions are 464.43 meters in length, and 316 0.67 meters in height. Its mass is 3,500,000 metric tons, so it's a hefty little boy. Performance is a warp. Its maximum warp is 9.8 for 12 hours. Its armament is 6 Type 10 phaser emitters and 2 proton torpedo launchers. So okay, compare that with the Galaxy class, which Galaxy classes were big ships for its time. It is the length was of a Galaxy class is 642 meters, which is about 150 meters bigger than the Akira class. So the Akira class is maybe a quarter of the size of the Galaxy class, which is the Enterprise D, but compared to the Galaxy class has a maximum warp of 9.6 for 12 hours, or 9.9 for 12 hours uprated. So depending on if it's been updated or not, a Sovereign Galaxy class would lose in a race to an Akira class. But the Akira was, I think, due to its smaller size, it had a less armament than the Galaxy class. But the idea, compared to a Galaxy class, it had more support craft, more fighters. So I think that's where it differed. But I like the smaller, less of a target size of the Akira class. I think the Akira class came at a time where Starfleet was really on its heels due to the sudden impact the Borg had of the Borg threat. So I think the Akira was an answer. We need more teeth in our ships. We're going to have to step away from exploration and really handle defense for a while. And let's see. Here it is, the ships of the line. So we have the USS Akira, which they called it the Akira because named after the great anime from I think the 90s. When did it? Or the 80s. And from the 1988 Akira anime. Because one of the a lot of the time starships in Star Trek will have different variations. One of the variations of the Akira is called the USS Alita, which is a different design of the Akira class. You have the USS Avalon, like that one, the USS Fire Sword, the USS Helios, the USS Robin, the USS Sentinel, USS Thunderchild, which is the one we kind of know of the most. The USS Rishring. Two that we're not certain of is the USS Masako and the USS Spectre. But if you notice, it has almost. I saw one that's not on here. Let me see. I saw one where it was called the USS Katana, so USS Broadsword. So it was a lot of the defenses and the weapons kind of kept in line with the defense and warship aspect of the Akira. But the Akira kept in line with a lot of. Roddenberry had rules of starship design, and here he had 4 that I can find. I've been told there's 10, but I can't find any more. Rule 1: warp nacelles must be in pairs, which the Akira follows. Rule 2: warp nacelles must have at least 50% line of sight on each other across the hull, which, due to the Akira, the nacelles going down, like here below, keeping that. Warp nacelles must be fully visible from the front, which the Akira follows. The bridge must be located at the top center of the primary hull, which the Akira follows. We're seeing get better. We didn't do too big a thing for Easter. I think my niece went over to a friend's house and hunted eggs. Dad grilled out his ham, smoked it on the grill, and Mom made not mashed potatoes, deviled eggs and potato salad. So that was we had that for lunch, just the 4 of us. But I realized a few days ago that Easter was going to fall on the same day as First Contact Day. So I thought I'd do a little Star Trek little Star Trek show for a little while. But we're getting back to Star Trek. We're seeing less newer ships just kind of disregard these rules. Yeah, 2 for the price of 1. We're seeing ships now in Kurtzman Trek. We're seeing just kind of disregard the these rules that were laid down. We're celebrating 60 years of Star Trek, and within the past 10, they have just disregarded, especially in the past year. If you want to hear my thoughts on Starfleet Academy, check out my friend Madman Cafe. We talked about every episode of Star Trek Academy. But excuse me, hold on a sec. It's this idea that you can just disregard history. And Roddenberry had specific reasons for these. The reason that the nacelles needed to be fully visible from the front. Because if you look at, Hold on a second. Dude, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna see here. We had if you look at this, is called a Bussard collector. What it would do, it would take stellar matter as the ship was flying through space. It would take stellar matter and collect it and use it to refuel the ship. So it made it so a ship didn't need to stop at a starbase to get gas. So it needed to have a clear line of sight with the space in front of it. But now we have ships that the nacelles aren't even attached to the main hull. So how do you get that power from the nacelles to the ship? Beautifully, I do a lot of this stuff on the fly. I have like 6 or 7 slides and stuff prepared, but then something will pop in my head. I'm like, oh, I need to bring this up. So it's attached to the front of the warp nacelles, and it basically makes it so, like I said, you don't have to stop. So why would a ship how would this work? If you had the ship, you couldn't get the stellar matter. And there are some amazing ships that I love, that disregard that rule. Let's see. So here's another ship that I like. It's not canon. I wish it was. This is called the Typhoon class ship. This is a ship that's basically in some regards it's considered a mobile starbase. One of the most unique designs in Starfleet history, the Typhoon class has no saucer section. Instead of the class is linear in design with large hangar bays. The bridge is recessed back on the nose, so it's right here. Here, I believe these are the hangar bays. The ship lacks heavy firepower on its own. Instead, it relies on a handful of phaser arrays and the fighters it carries for defense. It's slower than most modern Federation ship with a maximum speed of only warp 9. Most ships are like 9.8. 9.999999 is like the maximum warp. It is impossible to go to beyond warp 10. And we saw that in a crazy episode of Voyager where Janeway and Paris break the warp 10 barrier, but they de-evolve into these weird, they evolve into like these weird lizard things, and they mate. So there's like Janeway nasty Paris lizard babies with somewhere out in the Delta Quadrant. It's so weird. But here, the collectors are not. They break one of the 4 rules. They're not in line. They're not out. They're not able to collect anything because they're not visible from the front. Now this. Hey Q2, thanks for coming. Just talking some Star Trek, talking about my favorite ships. I'll catch you later, my dude. If you want some good movies, good talks, go to Q2 Cast TV Madman Cafe. I go out every Tuesday where we talk movies, topics. We talk about topics, movies, TV shows, the business side of it. So check out Q2 Cast TV. But so the life, a lot of these ships are given lifespans, like when a ship's going to be decommissioned and stuff. So this one is expected duration 80 years, time between resupply 5, time between refit is 10. And here's what I love. This is one of why this and the Akira are two of my favorite starships. It's a carrier class, while the Akira class is more battleship. The Typhoon class is carrier. Now this has a small crew of about 200 officers, 250 officers, 320 enlisted, Marines 149, a cruising speed of 6.2, which is slow. Maximum warp, again, slow, which is warp 9. It has 2 shuttle bays, 10 shuttles, attack fighters 65, and 8 runabouts. And now this part, what I'm talking about now with this class is not canon. Wish it was. I would love to see. These are the Akira and the Typhoon class are 2 ships I'd love to see as hero ships. Hero ships are the main ships of a TV series. And we've seen bits of the Akira, shots of the Akira, but never, I don't even think we've seen the inside of an Akira class ship before. So it shows how Starfleet, it says it's an exploration institute, but it's in practice, it's really not. It's this idea that Starfleet has is so insane to me that you expect the galaxy as at large to have the same ideals of pacifism as peace as you. It's not going to happen. And a lot of times they'll be so focused on the exploration part that when they run into people like the Borg or the Klingons or the Romulans, or especially the Dominion from Deep Space Nine, so many people are lost. So much is lost that Starfleet or the Federation is on the borderline of losing a war until they can get on their feet and get these ships out, like the Akira or the Sovereign or the Defiant, and really punch back hard. I can't remember what show it was. It said in order to beat the Federation, the Starfleet, you have to do it fast, because once they get on their war footing, they are unstoppable. But it's in that time, so much blood. And Starfleet, we've seen in the past with the Cardassian War, the Klingon War, the Dominion War, we saw Starfleet willing to give up so much for peace at the expense of their own people. Because that's in Deep Space Nine, one of my favorite storylines is the Maquis. Maquis were Federation citizens until that were on these border worlds with Cardassia, making lives alive for themselves without the comforts of that Earth had. Earth was a paradise up until the Dominion attacked. And Cisco said it's right. It's easy when you can look out your world and see window and see paradise, and that's how Earth was. Earth was so out of touch during the Dominion and Cardassian wars that they basically gave their people. They expected their people just to get up and move. It's not that easy when you build your lives, and give everything, including your life, for this home that you build, this new world that you built. And that's what the Maquis were about. And I kind of agreed with them. I didn't agree with their tactics, but I agreed with their ideals. That, the Federation abandoned them to the Cardassians, who abused them and killed them. So why would they not fight back? And we saw like Picard and Cisco just could not see past their uniforms to the issues that were going on out in the world, in the universe at large. They couldn't see the plight of the Bajorans or the Maquis at the hands of the Cardassians. And so many lives and so much was lost because the Federation were not prepared. They let their ideals of what they wanted the galaxy to be, what they hoped the galaxy to be, blind them to what the galaxy was. One like one episode of Next Generation. What was that? During the Treaty of Algernon, I believe it was, made it illegal for the Federation to develop cloaking technology. So the Federation, for peace, gives up one of the greatest tactical advantages that every other superpower, the Romulans and the Klingons, are allowed. The two of the three biggest superpowers in the Alpha and Beta quadrants are allowed this great tactical advantage, but Starfleet wanted peace so bad they were willing to give that up, which was, to me, one of the biggest mistakes. So in my opinion, like Captain Pressman and Captain Maxwell, they saw the galaxy for what it was, for what it really was. They saw the threat of the Cardassians, of the Romulans, and the Klingons for what it was. That's why Pressman developed the phase cloak, not just a cloaking, but a phase cloak that could pass through solid objects on the Pegasus. He was right. Maxwell was right. The Cardassians were moving equipment and weapons to this base that had no scientific value, like the Cardassians said. So Picard knew he was right, but he was not willing to do anything, which I can understand, wanting to keep the peace, but the peace is so fragile to begin with that the Federation they betrayed their own people in so many regards. And that's why I honestly believe that if the Federation was a real power, they would fail. They had plot armor, but exploring is great. Scientific endeavors is great, but what do you do when you go out to sea and you run into sea monsters? That's the question that Starfleet has failed to answer, and that the Akira, the Typhoon, the Defiant class answers. But like, the Defiant is not a battleship; it's an escort ship, because Starfleet likes to play word games to make themselves feel better. it's an interesting conundrum, the idea of balancing that peace, seeking peace, and defense, that I think really Starfleet has issues with. I can see how people like the Maquis or the Bajorans, they would be cautious about Starfleet. I could see one of my favorite scenes is in Star Trek, The Undiscovered Country, when the Enterprise command staff has dinner with the Klingon High Chancellor and his crew, and they're discussing like the Federation and Klingon Empire. They're comparing them, and we see that the Federation, we like other nations in the Star Trek galaxy. They have like the Klingon intelligence, they have the Tal Shiar for the Romulans, the Obsidian Order for the Cardassians. They're open about having these nasty intelligence agencies that will do what must be done, no matter how dirty their hands with. With Starfleet and the Federation, they have Section 31, which is, you don't talk about Section 31. They're the boogeyman. They're whispered. They are so clandestine, they don't even have any base of operations like these other places do. Because unlike the Federation, the other powers, they're honest about all that. The Federation wants this squeaky clean idea that we're perfect. We seek peace. We're explorers. We're not fighters. We're not in the military. Well, yeah, you are. Whether you like it or not, Starfleet is the military. They use the Navy structure because, one, it's basically the Space Navy, and two, that's Roddenberry, I believe, was in the Navy or Army Air Corps. I think he was in the Navy. I think he was a Navy pilot, and that was the command structure that he knew the best. So that's why he wrote that into the story. But the Federation isn't as honest as I believe that as everyone else, and they're willing to give so much up. But it's where can I go from here? I love it when how far are you willing to go with your pacifist views is the question that you have to ask about the Federation. And I think we've seen these ups and downs. During times of peace, you'll see the more explorer type ships being developed, like the Sovereign and the USS Voyager, those kind of starships. But then you see when you give Starfleet a bloody nose and knock them to the ground, they'll get up with ships like the Akira or the Typhoon or the Defiant class that really just will knock you on your ass. And peace is a great aspiration, but you can't expect everyone to hold the same ideals. And that's where the Federation, I think, falters, especially Starfleet falters. I love Star Trek. I love this idea of finding ourselves on the journey. Star Trek has never been about the destination. It's been about the journey. And finding yourselves in that journey. finding yourself at your lowest and then able to rise to the occasion and do and be things and discover things you never thought possible. And I would say during the Kurtzman era, we've really fallen away from that. And I love how Star Trek also, it looks to the future while respecting and taking inspiration from the past. One thing I really love, I love Enterprise. It's one of my favorite Star Trek shows. A lot of people crap on it. It's hard to do a prequel because you're really constrained when you're doing a prequel by the history of it. And I think that Enterprise did a really good job. It's only set about 150 years in the future. It's about 100 years before Kirk. It's about the very first Starfleet ship to go out, the USS Enterprise NX-01, and the crew of that ship, and how they're on their own, basically. A lot of times in the show, they would be setting up buoys for subspace communications. It was almost like serving on an old schooner. You were basically cut off from the world, or communications were extremely hard. But the characters, to me, in Enterprise were more relatable than any other series. They were concerned about very modern stuff, and they would talk about places like on Earth, and you could relate more because it wasn't that long from now. Like Commander Tucker trip is from my hometown, from here in Florida. Oh, you docked yourself, nerd. You saying you're from Florida. I say it in my freaking open theme song that I'm from Florida. Sunshine State where the nerds play. There's a YouTuber who's leading the way. Yay. Sorry. Tism got me. With a little bit of tism comes a little bit of fun. But he would talk about, I've mentioned this so many times before, but I can't talk about Star Trek without talking about this. He would talk about going to Bayview High School. That sounds a lot like my high school, or the main high school in town. He would talk about walking down the streets of the town. Those are my streets. Now, according to the writers, the towns on the west or east coast and got destroyed by aliens, by the Xindi during the Xindi attack. Wrong. We're about 400 or 500 miles west. So the writers didn't have a map, y'all. But it's the ships, 23rd century or the 24th century ships are my favorite. Is my favorite time. The Akira, the Sovereign, the Galaxy class. Those ships were my favorite. One more ship I want to talk about, and it's the one we didn't see very much of. We saw in the movies. First Contact, Insurrection, which I like Insurrection. I don't care what people say. And then we last saw it in Nemesis. Sovereign class. I really liked the Sovereign class. This was the Enterprise E. Now remember, in First Contact, and is where the Sovereign class was introduced, because in Generations, which was the first TNG movie, the Enterprise D is destroyed by the Duras sisters. They basically capture Geordi and use his and design his visor as a spy device, and they find the shield frequency of the Enterprise D, and they're able to basically remodulate their weapons so the weapons can go through the shield, catches the Enterprise by surprise. The star drive, which is the nacelles and the warp drive, is destroyed, but the saucer section crash lands, and that's when we last saw the Enterprise D until the third season of Picard, where Geordi had been rebuilding it. He took the saucer section and rebuilt it, and took parts from other ships and rebuilt the star drive. So beautiful callback. This is my favorite movie ship. So let's look at physical armaments. Nearly 700 meters in length. The Sovereign class was considered two hull section, a saucer section, and a secondary hull, which mounted 2 warp missiles. Now, it follows the rules. Remember our rules. It follows the rules. It has 2 warp nacelles. They see 50% of each other, line of sight. They're fully visible from the front, and the bridge, again, is located at the top. Let's see. It has several enhancements over previous Starship classes weapon systems, including quantum torpedoes, as well as photons and numerous phaser banks. Great shot of the lower torpedo launcher. Let's see. Let's go back. I want to find the specs. Here it is. Length is 2,248 meters in length. Height is 290. The sail span is 700 meters. Wow. So it's a big old boy compared to other ships. Let me see. Where's the technical data? So it's appeared in the three films. It's appeared in, let's see. Lower Decks, Prodigies. So it's appeared quite a bit in First Contact, Insurrection, Nemesis. So it's the computer graphics mostly. Let's see. Here's the quite a few ships. The Ark Royale Enterprise, which we never learned why the Enterprise E was out of commission. The USS Gilgamesh, Glasgow, Hrothgar, Hutchison, the USS Sovereign, Valkyrie. See, a lot of the in Star Trek, in Starfleet, when you have like the Akira class or the Sovereign class, the first ship of the line is always the name of the class. So that's why you're seeing Akira and Sovereign in the name of the ships. Okay, so good bit of. So we're seeing more Sovereign classes than Akira classes. Okay. Let me see. Doesn't have what I want. You know, one thing I always found weird about Star Trek ships were how spacious they were. I always thought that, on a starship, it's that idea of Babylon 5 where everything, like, space is a premium commodity. But in Star Trek, everything's so spacious. They're so, like, the quarters are so Spartan in some ways. They don't seem It's almost like they don't seem lived in compared to like in Babylon 5 or other shows of the kind. Everything is cramped almost. So I don't everything like in Starfleet ships, everything kind of slides out a little bit. So it's almost like Starfleet ships aren't lived in almost. Like when you're a cadet or an NCO on Starfleet, you're in bunks. The officers are the ones that have those luscious crew quarters that like in Relics, one of my favorite Next Generation episodes, Scotty is just dumbfounded about the size of the quarters. And he's like, he couldn't believe it. And the crewman's like, we could find you something bigger if you like. He's like, bigger? Are you crazy? This is huge. But it's everything. It's like, where do people work? Like, you never see anyone like with an open panel compared to the original series, Next Gen and the Berman Trek. You don't see like, people working like hands-on. Like I remember seeing in the original series, like people would have panels in the halls and they'd be like sparks flying and they'd be just working with their hands. Like you'd expect them to come out covered in grease or something. So the Sovereign has 23 decks. So it's longer, but it's flatter. It's so yeah, because you don't want something so big because it's the bigger a ship is, the easier it is to hit. So I can see why Starfleet designers would go kind of long but lean. But I wish we could go back to these amazing designs that Roddenberry and follow Roddenberry's rule. One thing, I love writing, so I write to relax. I write to decompress. One thing I do is with the Akira class, I wrote like a great ship name to me would be the USS Spartan, because the Akira is more of a warship and you have all the support craft in it. And it's Star Trek is what we could aspire to. A world of peace, but it's also a world you have to defend. And today is a day I just really think back, it's First Contact Day. It was one flawed man in First Contact. It's like, what if we as Americans were able to go back in time and meet Washington? Would he meet our standards, that the mythology that's grown up around him? That's how the crew of the Enterprise deal with Cochrane. Now, if you think about it, it's 2063 and from my research I did, Cochrane isn't born yet. He's supposedly born in the 2030s. He's lived a rough. Let me bring this up. I just found this and I started laughing. So he's not even 40 by the time he launches the Phoenix. That's a rough 30s. See, this is the original Cochrane that we meet in an episode of the original series. This is the First Contact Cochrane. And I think today I played Star Trek Online for a very long time, which is a MMORPG where you could pick either Klingon, Romulans, or Federation plus a bunch of other. You could pick Dominion and pick subclasses of those groups. And what they do for First Contact Day, they open up a area from Bozeman, Montana. And this is the statue that Barkley mentions to Cochrane that freaks him out in First Contact, which I always found funny. But we see that he's basically a drunk who's in it for money and women. He's like, I don't even like flying. I take trains, which I always thought was funny. The man who invented warp drive and made light speed travel possible doesn't even like to fly. And it's after World War III. So basically society's pretty much collapsed. It used to be like in Star Trek history, the eugenics wars, which happened in the 90s, at one time it was interchangeable with World War III, but they've kind of retconned it a little bit to make, I guess, fit in with this our real world timeline. Happy Easter and happy First Contact Day, Divinity said. How you doing? Hope you ate a lot of ham and a lot of eggs were found. Hope you use fake eggs. You don't want to miss out and like hiding a real egg and not finding it for months or weeks. Oh, that'd be awful. But Star Trek shows you what humanity could be, what we are capable of, what the journey could make us into. And that's why I love Star Trek. It shouldn't focus, and this is where I think Kurtzman Trek has failed. Kurtzman Trek is focused on too much on one character, one or two characters. Star Trek has always been an ensemble show. It's always each character should have episodes where they shine in, where they are the focus. You learn about their backstory. I mentioned earlier before you came in, my dad smoked a ham on the grill. So good. And this time it wasn't so salty. He did something different when he was getting it ready, that it wasn't so salty. My mom made egg salad, and we had deviled eggs and Hawaiian rolls. Oh, so good. I want to have ham tomorrow for breakfast. Or ham and eggs tomorrow. Ooh, that sounds good. Oh, I'm drooling. Food. But yeah, I think my niece went, and I haven't seen her this afternoon. They went to church early this morning. Their church they go to usually has like 3 services on Easter morning. Like one was at 7 a.m. And so they went to that one. So they got home really early. And yeah, it was good food. And then she went off, I think, to our neighbors and hid eggs because they have like 2 or 3 acres with a pond and a little farm-like area. So good. But this is what I wanted to get on here. I haven't live streamed. I've been doing videos mostly, but I haven't live streamed in a while. So thank y'all for being here. Tonight I have some friends who are real big tabletop gamers. So if you are into that, go to Tennessee Tabletop Gaming and the Bad News Bards. Check them out. They'll be on in about 30 minutes to an hour, I believe. But before I go, I want to thank my supporters. All of you support me, and I love all of you for supporting me. These are the ones that have donated to the channel and helped me stay afloat and really made me feel love. So I want to thank Squad Bob, the old man who drives me crazy, but I love him. He's awesome. Divinity said, who's in the chat? Love you, Div. Cake or Death and Bertram850. Thank you all again. And if you want to support the channel, if you want to help the Outpost grow, go to buymecoffee.com/outpostnerd to donate if you want. But thank you all again for those of you who have donated. So just Star Trek gives us hope for the future. In such dark times that we're facing now, that we have faced for a very long time, it gives us hope. And I hope that we can keep looking to the future and seeing humanity rise above where we are now. So, like I always say, find your passion and nerd out about it. I'm the nerd of the Outpost. Love you guys. I'm gone.
Lost in space, I found my beliefs. In the shadows of solitude, my way. Binary code run through my veins. With every beat and beat, I feel no pain. Signing off, it's time to go. Goodbye, my nerdy friends, see you later. I know through the stars we've shared this ride, but now it's time to say goodbye, farewell.